So my name is Max, and today we'll be covering working with lists in Okta Workflows. So I'm going to show you different examples of setting up lists and actually processing lists or a list in Okta Workflows. So specifically, we're going to do for each card, the streaming card, we're going to see how to create a list and then how to process a list and then return a different list. We will also see an example how we can reduce a list, meaning we get a list and then we're going to combine all its values into a single value. And we'll also look at an example processing an API because it's very, usually you get a list from an API call. Okay, so this event is recorded and then a recording will be available tomorrow on the Okta YouTube channel. And there's a Okta Workflows playlist that has all our videos. All right, so let me, so to start, I'm going to be using, for all the examples, I'm going to be getting all the members of a group that I have in my Okta tenant. And let me just refresh this. And so this is the group that I have no code builders, and then the group has 5 members, all right? So we'll be working with this group, but just showing you this. I'm also going to copy this ID because that's the group ID. And I'm going to open workflows. All right, so okay. All right, so the first example is going to be using the for each, okay? But let me create a new flow. And let's give this a name for each. All right, and I'm clicking this option so I can see how the data passes when I run the flow. This. Okay, so but yeah, let me add the card first just so you can see the list. Now I'm going to go and to Okta. I'm going to use the Okta connector. And I'm going to search members. So list group members. And I'm going to select this option, the first 200 records. And now, of course, optionally, you can select which fields you want to show, but I'm going to have all of them. Now, what I sometimes do, because the list is long, what you can do is you can kind of collapse, so it just looks a little bit neater this way. But then I'm going to put the ID. That's the group ID that I showed you, right? And we can test this. We can run the flow. You can also test the individual card, but let's see, right? And we get 5 users, 5 members, I'm sorry, in the group, right? So right here. So this is the JSON. All right, so the goal here is, so you're working with this group and you need to process each member one at a time, right? So that's really what we're going to show you today. So the first option is to use a card called for each. And what it does is that it will process each member, each record from the list one at a time. Now, and it's available, if I click add function, it's available in the list category, right? If I scroll down here, it's called for each right here. So what I usually do is actually I just search for it. So if you type for each, right, you get these functions. Now, just kind of pay attention because there's one from object, right? It will allows you to iterate over object keys, but in this particular case, we want this one, the for each from list, right? So right here, it shows you the category or the object you're working with, right? And so this is how it looks. So it takes a list, and then this is the list of users that I get back, and I'm going to connect it like this. And now what it needs next is it needs a helper flow. So anytime you process a list in workflows is you need a helper flow, right? So it's another flow that will get each item one at a time, right? Now, the only thing is I can't save because I need to set the flow. So if I try to save, it's going to give me an error message. So I'm just going to click done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this folder in a different tab. Um, yeah, Matthew, if you have a question, if you can just put it in the Q&A, and then yeah, I know, I think again, if anyone joined a little bit late, the chat is disabled, and I'm not sure how to enable it once oh, actually, let me see here, panelists. Oh, actually, you can try now. I found the option. It says attendees can chat with anyone. Oh, perfect. Now it's working. All right, that was user error or host error. Okay. So I think I enabled the chat. Yeah. So yeah, if you have any questions, again, either the chat or the Q&A, but I got it working. All right, and so I'm going to this is the folder I created just now. I'm going to create a helper flow, and I'm going to give this a name for each, and I'm going to call this helper, and I'm going to save the data again. Now this is a regular flow, but to make it a helper flow, the first card has to be a helper flow. So these are the built-in triggers, and this is the helper flow, right? And there's some built-in fields that you get as part of this card. But here at the top is where you create inputs. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I usually like to call it record. I mean, you can make it more kind of context specific, like call it user or something else. But I usually can record, just kind of make it general. But again, it's of course up to you. But now the also important is you set the type, right? Right here is you set the type of the field, right? So this is important. I'm going to set this to be object. Let me see here. So can you make your work screen full screen in Zoom? I see. Oh, I don't know how to, I'm not certain how to make my screen full screen. I mean, it's full screen for me. If anyone knows, I know Matthew's only seeing half the screen. Oh, I'm not sure how to make it. Let me see here. Maybe I'll disconnect from the second monitor. See if it makes a difference. I don't know. Let me know if it's any better now. I turned off my second monitor. Maybe that was causing it. No. Hmm. Oh, I think I know. Let me see here. Oh man, I think I need training on Zoom. Um, I don't know. Is this any better? No. Okay. What about this? Is this any? Nope. Okay. All right. Um, okay. So I got this object. And so I'm now going to go back. Now, the key is that you also want to save this flow, right? So it saves all these fields. So I'm going to go here, and I am now going to choose a flow. And I'm going to select the folder and see December. And right here, this is the helper flow. And so notice what's going to happen. I'm gonna go back, cancel. So there is the run this flow, and then there's concurrency. but there are no other fields here. So when I select the flow, notice that it's going to read the information from the helper flow, and it's actually going to show me an input right here. So what I mean, let me show you this again. I'm going to select. So I'm going to choose, and notice that it says with these values right here. So what it does, it reads the metadata, or it reads the information on the helper flow, right? And it shows me the inputs, right? So this is the list, and then it's asking me, well, what values do you want to pass to the helper flow, right? And because I decided my input is record, which is the entire user, right? You can select the drop-down list there, and you select item, right? So I'm passing the entire user into the helper flow, right? So let's see how this works. So, right, this is enough for me to test. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click run. Now I'm actually going to get an error message now. And that's because the flow is not active. Okay. And so when you see this, and you're probably going to run into this at some point, the helper flow is off. Okay. So you want to turn it on and then run this again. Right now, success. And because I have 5 members, if I go to execution history, I should see 5 executions. Right? And so you can see 5 executions, and then every execution, it passes 1 user. Right? So it's a JSON object. Okay? And so once you get the object in here, now you can process and you can do something with this user. So that's one example. Now, you don't have to pass the entire object, right? So what I'm going to do is, let's say I want to pass only a specific property. And in fact, that's actually the recommended approach, is not to pass the entire object. But if you know that you only need specific properties, that's the recommended way to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do email. I'm going to pass the email. And again, important, you want to set the type. So in this case, it's going to be text. And then I'm also going to do one more field, which is not part of the object, right? But it's just extra information that I can pass to the helper flow. And maybe call this flow message, right? So notice that one thing is that I'm not going to save the flow, okay? But I'm going to go back. And just to show you, now, how do you update this? So you would click the flow itself, right here, flow, and then you would select it again. But because it didn't save the flow, it only shows me the record. Okay, so again, I run into this all the time, so I'm just showing this to you, so just so you know. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click save, and I'm going to go back. And again, to update this, right, again, so this information is coming from the helper flow. So I'm going to click the helper flow, and I'm just going to click choose. And now I have the 3 fields. So I'm going to select the item. This is the actual user. For the email, notice that it shows me the properties. So I'm going to select email. And this one, again, it doesn't need to be from the object. It can be any text, anything I want. And then say maybe this is testing for each card, right? It can be a number, really any data type. And I'm going to click save. Now I'm going to go to the helper flow. Also, one little, I guess, tip or trick is that, right, there is this button with an arrow. If you click on it, it opens the helper flow. So I'm going to add a card here, assign, and I'm going to just kind of assign these properties. Again, this is just to show you that you can further process these fields. But also what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a card called get from an object, right? And I'm going to pass and I'm going to do email, just to show you that this email and this will have the same output, right? So this object get card is you pass an object and you specify a key and it returns its value. All right, so let's save and let's run this. Right. So this is the for each, and then go to execution history. I should have more runs here. And if I look at the last one, so we can see that I get the email and I get the static message. I mean, this assign doesn't really do much. It just creates a new variable with the same information. But then the get, if I look here, it's the same email, right? So I pass the email directly via the email field, and I also pass the entire object, and then I read the email from that object, right? So this is how the for each. Let me see. I think there. Let's see here. For full screen, please go to the top right side. There is an option to share the screen. And that's in Zoom. Is that correct? Top right. Let's see here. Is it full? It's called full screen or? I don't know. Did this make any better? Oh, okay. Let me unshare. Let me stop sharing. Okay, share again. Right. Is this? Yay. Okay. Oh, I see what. Okay, I see what I did. All right. Another user error or host error. Okay. All right. Thank you. Um, all right. Um, Back here. So yes. So this is the for each. So let's go back here to the main flow. So I'm getting a list of members, and I'm passing, and then right? So you can pass the entire object, you can pass a particular field, and of course you can, have multiple of these. And you can also pass just a static field, right? So it's not part of the object, but you can pass additional information, right? And then in the helper flow, it will process each record at a time. But notice that it does not return any value, right? So it will process the list, and then it doesn't return like this card here. It doesn't return any values, right? So, but we're gonna look at an example where we do um, process the values. Okay, so let's go to the next example. And again, thank you for helping me with Zoom. I'm gonna unsave this. Um, I'm gonna copy the ID. All right, so this is the for each. Now, the next one I want to show you is using streaming. So it's going to be very similar, but streaming, what it does that it allows you to process a large amount of data and also a lot quicker. So let's see, members. So notice I selected first 200 records, right? So you're limited, but with the streaming, the number of records you can process is very large. And I have, let's see, I have docs here. No, this is not it. It's right here. So streaming, that limitations, but it's basically allows you to process a large number of records. But you can see like the numbers here. It takes some time, but you can process a very large number. And I don't see the actual limits. Oh, so it's actually 1 million right here, right? So you can, a lot more than just 200. And you do need to set a helper flow as before. Um, so let's go here and set up a helper flow. It's going to look similar. So let's do streaming helper. And the first card is the same. It's going to be helper flow. But the difference is there are two fields that you must set, right? And if you're using streaming, um, these are the fields you have to set. So the first one is going to be record, right? And it has to be an object. So this has to be an object, right? With the for each, right? It just depends what data you're passing, but this has to be a record. And then second one is called state, right? So again, these two are required, record and state, right? And we can also pass something else. So flow message, let's do something like this, right? But these two are required. This is optional. And again, these must be objects, right? So I'm going to save and I'm going to go back to the main flow. I'm going to choose flow and December streaming, right? And I'm going to click save. And so notice that there's no really option to specify which fields, right? The way this card works is that you're passing the entire object. So it kind of streams everything to the helper flow, right? Let's save. Oh, I didn't give this a name. All right. So let's turn this flow on and let's run it. Oh, one thing I forgot. So this is, again, sort of a common error, but I specified this. Oh, actually, this is the wrong place. It has to go here. I made a mistake. It actually goes into state right here, and the name flow message has to be match exactly right here. So we can say testing streaming, right? So let's run this now. Right here, it shows you in the main flow how many records are streamed. So only have 5, and then go back to the helper flow, right? And so I can see the record. So it passed the record. And if I go look in state right here, right, it passed my my static message, right? So if I want to continue, I would add a function here, for example, get, and I would pass the record, and I can do email, for example, and then I would retrieve the email, and I can process this, right? So let's run this again. And go to execution. And we can see the email. So email for just the first or the last record, and so on. And again, the static message here stays the same, right? So it's a kind of at a high level similar setup, but you always get the record. And again, the record and the state, you have to use these names, and they need to be an object, right? And if you're passing any additional information in the state object, so this flow message, this name has to match exactly what you have here, right? The case has to match, or you will have, it's not going to work. So, but that's for streaming, right? And again, you can specify also the record limit if you're testing, for example, so you can just, set a much, if you have a lot of records, you can set a much smaller, so you can process only only a small portion of records for testing, right? Actually, I wasn't saving the data, but that's fine, right? So this is how This is how streaming works. Okay. Now, the next one I'm going to show you is API, right? So when you call an API, it's very likely getting a list of records, right? And then you want to process them. So let's do that. Now, for API, I'm going to use this service called random user, which just returns a list of random users, and you can specify what information we want back. I'm going to use this here. I'm going to just return name, email, and location, and then I'm just getting 7 results. So I'm going to copy this URL, and I'm going to turn these off. I'm going to create a new flow. Let's give this a name, API. Okay. And first I'm going to set the URL. So I'm going to use the compose card. So this is the URL, and if you want to, you can always rename this just to make it a little bit more, sort of give more context. And now we're going to make an API call. So I'm using the get card from the get action from the API connector. And I'm gonna, okay. And so I don't need the query or the headers, but I'm going to leave them on. I'm going to click save, and let's just test this flow before we create the helper flow. Right? And if I scroll down to the body, I get 7 users. So if I open the first one, this is the name, this is their location, and then this is the email. So the name is an object, location is an object. Okay, so I want to process this. So let's create a helper flow. And so new flow, and we're going to call this API helper. Okay. And then as before, I'm going to add helper flow. And so the first time I'm going to pass in the entire record, and I'm going to make it to be an object. All right. I'm not going to get anything else where you already saw examples, but if I see the record here, you know that you can further process it. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to turn the flow on and go back, helper. So one thing is that notice that I'm getting the body, and if I go back and look at the history, is that I actually need the results, right? This is the list that has the users. So there are 2 ways to do that. You can add a get card here, and you can retrieve that list. But another option you can try is you can add the list right here, right? So I'm going to do, I think it's called result, right? Let me see. It is called result with an S, results. So go back. Move this. So results. And then you want to specify it's an object and it's a list, right? So okay. Now we're going to add the for each card. So I'm going to search for it and for each. And now I'm going to take the results now. And so I define this field so I can map it. So I can, okay. Now I'm going to choose flow. And so API helper. And now here, I only have the item. So I'm going to select the item. Click save. And let's see, this flow is on. So let's run this. All right. And if I go to helper, I should have 7 executions, right? And so this is the first one, right? Or the last one, and then this is the other one, and so on. All right. So as you can see, it's sort of similar. I mean, there is a little bit of extra work you need to do. You need to get the results list to define right here. But otherwise, it looks very similar to the first example. Now, if you wanted to pass in a particular field, we can do that. And for example, we want to pass the location. So I can do the location, and I can also do the name. Now, they're both objects, so we want to make sure they're an object right here. Right? I'm going to save. And now right here, I'm going to say location and name. Now, again, these are objects, but of course it can be just a regular text as well. I'm going to save. Now, and because I updated the inputs, I need to update this. So I'm going to click the name and just click choose again. And then what it does is that it does reset everything. So what you had before, you need to set it again. So for the record, I'm going to select item. And notice now, because it defined these properties, they're now shown. So location and then name. Right, I'm going to click save. This is saved. And let's run this. All right, and let's go to helper. And we can see that we've got the location, right? Oh, yes, this is the location. Yes, so it's a street, also includes time zone, I guess, and then the name, right? But if you wanted to do farther, you can pass just the first name, for example, and so on. So again, first we're passing the entire object, which has the name and the email. Then we're passing the location, which has just the street name, location, but also the time zone, and the name, right? So that's how you would set up reading an API. So reading data from an external API that is a list, right? So got about 10 minutes left. Let me see if there are any questions, and then we'll jump into the last two examples. Let me see if there are any questions here. All right, let me see here. There's from Matthew. Let's see, when I develop workflows, I have a need for helper flow. I find it very small. Has there been any considerations to add? Yeah, um, let me, um, yeah, I know that the team they're sort of considering to simplify working with or just in general to simplify working with lists. Um, Maybe even introducing something where you can kind of do, I don't know, inline, or where you don't have to create a helper flow. I know it's something they discuss, they would like to do, but I don't have any timeline on that. So yeah, for now it's going to stay where you have a parent flow or the main flow, and then you have to create a parent flow. And yes, you need to kind of sync the inputs. And today you define the inputs in the helper flow, which then the main flow reads, and then so yeah, I know it's once you do them a lot, it's kind of it gets a little bit tedious, but yeah, that's just how it works today. So, um, okay, two more examples. Um, so the first, the fourth example is we're going to do a list, but then we're going to return a new list, right? So far we processed these lists, but we didn't return anything, right? So you process, you do something, and then you sort of continue. But next, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the ID. All right, so we're going to call this map. Sorry, I'm going to run a little bit faster because I know we don't have a lot of time because of, sorry, I ran into Zoom problems. But let's get the same card for members. And this, we're going to go back to just using the 200. All right. So, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a helper flow for this map. And I'll tell you in a second why it's called map. So I'm call this map helper. And so similar, we're going to use the same card called helper flow. And for now, I'm going to actually pass in just two properties, first name and last name. So the goal is that I get a list and I would like to return a new list. So for example, I get a list of members in a group, but I need to, for some other things I'm going to do later, is that I need their email. So instead of first name, last name, I need to sort of have a list where their name is last name dot first name, right? Because I'm going to create emails or something else later, right? So that's the format that I need. So I need to get a list and then return a different list. So I'm going to use concatenate here, and I'm going to say last name and then dot first name. All right. And notice what I'm going to do here, this helper flow actually going to return a value. So I'm going to add function and return, right? And this is going to be, let's call this last name dot first name. And I'm going to put the input like this, the output. That's the string that I need. I'm going to save this. I'm going to turn this on. And now to process the list, I'm going to use, it's called map, but it's this one here. That's right. So it's still from the list, but it says converts a list to a new list, the same size. So I'm going to use this option and I'm going to map the list of users and I'm going to choose the helper flow as before. Right. And notice that we get first name and last name. And now I'm going to find those properties. So first name and last name. But notice here now it's called, sorry, there's a return value. It's called new list, right? So that's the difference. And then it's called list map. And that's why I called the flow map. Now, the only important thing is you have to specify, you have to make sure the type matches. So the type that you return here, it's a text, has to match, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this to text. So it's going to be a list of text, right? So this is also important. I'm going to save this and let's run. And so if I scroll down on this card, I can now open, this is the result. Then I get this list, right? So you can see it's last name to first name. That's the format that I wanted, right? So if you need to process a list and then return a new list of the same size, right, you would use a card called list map, right? It works similar, right? You have a helper flow, you pass in data, but the difference is that it returns a new list, right? Just be careful with the data types. It's easy to forget to set the data type, and then you get a different sort of different list than you need. Okay, but that's how list map works. All right, and the last one I'm going to show you is reduce. So let me go. And what the reduce does is that it takes a list of values and will reduce it or sort of formats it into a single value. So this is handy when you have a list and you need to put something into a message, and you need to take the list values into a single text value. So let's create a call this reduce. And sorry, reduce. All right. But first, I'm going to create a list, and then I'm going to create the list right in the flow, and I'm going to use a called construct. And let's say I have a list of departments. So for example, maybe like marketing, human resources, and maybe sales. I think 4 is fine, and then finance, right? So I have a list of uh, departments, and now I'm going to use add function, and again, you can just type reduce, and it's coming from the list category also, and this is right. So again, similar, we're going to map the list like this. I'm going to choose a flow. So we're going to create a helper flow first. So let's go here. And let's create the last flow. And I'm going to call this reduce helper. Now, the reduce helper also going to have the same starting card. And I'm going to pass in the uh, oh, it's just a text. So put record. But one thing I need to do is, and this is going to be a text, is that there is a, a required field called memo, which is actually right here as well, right? I'm going to show you how it works, but you must set it and has to be, the type has to match. So I have it a text here, then it has to be a text here as well, right? Um, and in here, this is the initial value that I want to pass. So I'm going to say department list, something like this, right? Now I'm going to choose a flow and this. Oh, and what happened is I forgot to save it, and that's why I don't see it. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to turn it on. Um, well, actually, let me continue finish this. So it's going to be here. So I'm going to use a compose card. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this memo field um, and then the record, right? And I'm going to have a return card, and I'm going to go over this when we run this. So and then I'm going to do something like this. All right. I think the fields, the names are okay, but let's go back and I'm going to choose a flow. And then right now, right here, again, this is the resulting list or value. And in my case, it's going to be just text because that's what I am creating, just a text. All right. It's gonna be easier to show you how it works when I run the flow. So again, my goal is I have a list of departments and I want to put it into a single text value, right? So maybe here, I'm going to add a compose here. I just want to use it for a message later, or maybe send email or Slack or something. So let's run this. Oh, okay. Let me see here. Something is not working. Um, let's see. This looks great. I have a finished example I can show you. Um, but now let me see, maybe some record. No record. There was record has to be no. I think it's a text because it's text. It's text here. Um, this looks fine. Um, um, let's see. Well, let's see what happens here. Let me look. You know, I'm gonna go to, I know we're almost out of time. Oh, I'm not saving this. Oh no. Oh, it's not even calling my flow. Oh, I know what the mistake is. This is object construct. I need list construct. That's the problem. Here we go. So when you get like when you type and then you get two cards which are the same, right? But from two different, you know, categories. That's the mistake. Again, this is I guess it's good that it's happened, but hopefully it won't happen to you. So I need the list one. And then so marketing, that's the problem. And then finance. And then we're gonna remove this like this. And then and all right. All right. Hopefully this was the bug. Let's run this. Oh, much better. So we can see that the reduce car right here processed the list, and then what we got back is just a text, right? It's just a single text value with departments. But let's see, let's go here and see how it works. It's best to show it to you here. So this is the first run. But the way it sort of does that, it reduces the list. So it takes a value, um, it creates the text, and then on the next run, it adds the next text, and on the next run, it adds the next text value. So on the first run, notice the memo has department list, right? And so I pass the department list to the compose, and it basically, so it takes department list and adds the first value from the list marketing. So on the first run, the text value is the initial value from memo and then marketing, right? So this is from memo, and then this is marketing. And now what it does, it returns this, Now, this is going to be the memo value next, right? So when I go to the second execution, notice that memo now holds the initial value plus the first item, and then it does kind of continue. So we can see that this is the memo. It adds the second item from the list, and then becomes the output. And it passes the output, it returns the output. Now in this third run, the memo now has the initial value plus the two items. And then next, it will add the sales. So we have the initial plus three items, and then returns the items. And on the last run, right, it's going to do the same. It's going to take the memo value and then add the finance and then return it. And now we're done processing the list, and it exits, and then you've got this single text with all the values. All right. So that's how reduce works. All right. I think that's all I wanted to show you. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I'm gonna send an email. You're gonna receive an email from Zoom with some links to the recording, and we have a lot of guides about working with lists, and there are also guides that show you how to specifically build using the for each streaming, the API, reduce, and the map. So you'll have all this information, so you can go back and kind of go and see how it works. And of course, you'll have this recording as well. But let me know if you have any questions. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I think next time it will be better. But yeah, thank you for helping me with Zoom. Um, yeah, I think I'll probably need training on Zoom myself. So let's see here. Um, let's see, Matthew. Oh, I'm sorry, Michael. I see. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, when you have the helper and the main, you always have to kind of keep it in mind. So yeah, it's a, I mean, it's good. I mean, I think you can always make it more simpler, but yeah, it just, I guess that's how it just works today. So, but hopefully this meetup helps you kind of sort of learn more how to process a list in different ways in workflows. Cool. Well, I'm going to, if you, me, my, I shared my email, but you know, on that slide. But if you have any questions, you can always, here, I'll put a message. You can always email me. So, but I don't see any more questions. Then, thanks everyone again for joining today. Thank you for helping me, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.